Hello and welcome to the first of our sit-down interviews in 2019 with the Mayor of Lansing, Andy Schor. Andy, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Berl. Happy New Year to all of your viewers.
Any New Year's resolutions you want to share?
You know, I don't really do New Year's resolutions. It's good. My wife always dictates resolutions for me, which don't usually last very long. So no, I usually don't do New Year's resolutions. It's too easy to break.
Yeah, I resolved to drink more water, and I broke that within 24 hours.
Proving my point.
Right, exactly. Well, lots to talk about. I wanted to start out by talking about this federal government shutdown. Are there any effects on the operating the city?
We're hearing a few. You know, we won't see major effects until it gets further down the field, till paychecks stop coming, which is soon.
Paychecks
for federal employees. For federal employees. We're having conversations. We know our emergency management. We do a lot of we get a lot of funding from the federal government for emergency management, and we're hearing that those grant dollars may be delayed. I don't think we've heard anything on CDBG yet. So we're paying attention. Mm-hmm. The emergency management folks, in terms of our flood response, our fire, any emergency response, that's really the only place where it's come up so far. But what are we now? The second longest government shutdown federally. I expect it will. We don't really have any federal parks or anything like that, but there are a variety of grants and things that we have applied for and expected to get from the feds that we're concerned about. So we'll keep an eye on it, but not huge impacts yet. We also don't have too many federal employees. We've got some federal employees that, again, if they're not getting paychecks, then that can be a concern. So we'll keep an eye on all of it.
All right. Before the new year, the legislature approved Sampson's bill for court consolidation, yep, which gives you the better part of this year to come up with a plan with East Lansing and Ingham County. So what's the next step?
We have to get together and we have to see if we can finalize a consolidation plan. I think we had tremendous hope that we would be able to consolidate everything on the south side of Lansing down at Jolly and Collins, and we've talked about that in the past. It's MSU property, and they've said that this isn't the time to give up that property, and that's their decision. So now we have to figure out, where would the location be? What would the dollars look like? Is it a straight consolidation, but we're not creating new locations? So we'd consolidate the courts, but they'd remain in 3 separate places. These are all options that we have to discuss. See, is there savings? When is there savings? Is it short term? Is it long term? We're continuing to work on City Hall, which I'm sure is on your list. So we'll look at doing a City Hall with the courts included, with the 4 courtrooms included, as well as with a lockup, and then figure out how that impacts the costs, which it will. So we have to have conversations, and Mark Meadows and I have spoken by phone, and we think we'd like to get everyone back together and say, now that the state law allows for this, let's figure out where the gaps are, what the details are, and how we can move forward. There's a cost somewhat to the county by taking these over. Again, our $1.8 million savings is a cost to the county. So how do we navigate that? How do we take less of a savings to make sure that the county is not going to be significantly negatively impacted? So we'll look at all of that in conversations with the county, with East Lansing, and with some of the other parties.
Did I understand you correctly that an option might be to consolidate without physically consolidating?
Could be.
How does that accomplish one of the prime goals, which is to save money?
Right. Well, that's a good question, and we have to look at that. Realistically, it's better government to have even if you had 3. If you had 1 in Lansing, 1 in East Lansing, and 1 at the county, Lansing can still combine with Lansing Township. East Lansing can still combine with Meridian. We still have residents in Lansing Township, in Meridian Township, and in some of these big populous areas who are driving, in essence, past a courthouse to go down to Mason to a new courthouse. So it's still good government. And then how do you get savings? You get savings through attrition. Over years, you'll see, attrition, if there's an opportunity to combine the 2 later on, Again, it would, in essence, it would be a cost to the county instead of the city. The savings are not the same as it would be if we consolidated and then put it into one building. But again, consolidating and putting into one building has an infrastructure cost. So we have to navigate all of that. And it would be nice if this is the time, and if there were savings. And if it's not, then then we'll move forward with the continued district court system the way it is.
This is the first I've heard of the possibility of consolidating without actually physically consolidating.
Well, that was in the report. I mean, the report listed different options. It listed leaving 3. It listed 2, so 1 for East Lansing, and 1 for Mason. It listed 1 on the south side. So we had all 3 options listed in the report. It's just a matter of, there's a preference. And if you want to have savings, consolidating physically would provide a bigger savings. It's also bigger savings if if in the future we think there are going to be reduced numbers of judgeships and things like that, then there's a savings there. But again, then where is the judgeship reduced? We would prefer not to have it reduced in Lansing because we think we need our 4. So, we have to figure out what we can do in the next year that will create a long-term savings and better government for the people of Ingham County. And if it makes sense, it does. And if it doesn't, then we won't move forward.
I guess it's the first time I've heard you mention that possibility. Does the opposition of the 2 district judges in East Lansing in any way play a role in bringing up that option?
For me, my conversations have been mostly with our district judges in Lansing. 3 of 4, up until now, 3 of 4, which were supportive of a consolidation. They especially want to get out of City Hall because the system right now, especially in our lockup, is challenging. I'm sure Mark Meadows is talking with his district judges. I'm not really sure what their opposition is. I know that their concerns were within their own lockup, and I really can't address their concerns. Like I said, we talked with our district judges, and our chief judge, Judge Alderson, is very supportive. She testified in support when Sam Singh's bill was up. We'd like to make it work for the city of Lansing and for the county. So we'll continue to meet and talk about the options and see if it's possible. And I think that there's a good opportunity here, even if it's a step-by-step opportunity where you consolidate to the county, but have 2 or 3 courthouses or courtroom locations, and then consolidate from there. We're going to try and find the best plan, and the devil's in the details.
Is the fact that MSU isn't prepared to sell that piece of property the reason you're looking at the option of semi-consolidation?
Well, it was always an option.
Right. But it hasn't been in the fore before.
Well, when we started, we looked at 2 locations, and that was one of the complaints. That was, but we looked at that immediately. We looked at one in Mason, which is where there's a courthouse now, and one in between East Lansing and Lansing. And again, that's still a possibility. It's just a matter of costs. And for us, our incentive is getting out of City Hall and creating a new City Hall and mitigating the costs for new City Hall, and not having 4 courtrooms would mitigate the cost for City Hall. So it's all a financial calculation while looking at the best government.
All right, so City Hall. Let me review for our viewers what's happened over the last year. You inherited a plan from Mayor Bernero's administration, approved by City Council, that would have moved City Hall to the old Lansing State.
Yeah, let me correct you, not approved by City Council.
Not approved by City
Not
Council.
proposed by Mayor Bernero with in essence, a signed contract, a signed agreement, but not approved by City Council.
Okay, thank you. Then you endorsed that plan, but then you backed off of it because, you liked the Beitler plan.
Correct. That's the part.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So then,
I haven't backed off of that.
Then you said, but we've got to figure out what to do with the courts and the lockup, which weren't accounted for in moving City Hall to the Lansing State Journal building. You just basically put a moratorium on the City Hall development plan proposed by Beitler in Chicago. Then late in 2018, you said, we need to move forward on City Hall. So why did you, there's obviously a connection there with court consolidation, I guess, but what motivated you to say, okay, we got to get going?
Well, and I would challenge some of the statement there.
Okay.
When we came in, there had been a process, there had been a review of proposals under Mayor Bonero of what to do with the old City Hall, and the choice was the Beitler proposal for old City Hall. In Beitler's original proposal, it was just he would take old City Hall. He did not propose a place for City Hall to go. He just proposed what he would do with that building, which was that beautiful hotel. At the end of 2017, Mayor Bonero worked with Beitler and the Ide family to match that with the Lansing State Journal building. That went to council and was never approved. It was never taken up. They had hearings, but it was never taken up. When I came in, we said we like the proposal from Beitler for old City Hall for the current building, but we don't know the best solution for where to go. The Lansing State Journal proposal was a $50 million, up to $50 million proposal, and we think that is too expensive. I think that we can generate somewhere around $30 million for tax increment financing from revenue from the Beitler building towards a new City Hall. So I think that the State Journal proposal was too expensive, what they had put before City Council. So we said we will look at all options. And then we said, we don't know where new City Hall is going to go, and we don't know what's going to go on with the courts, and we'd like to take a run at court consolidation to see if we don't have to include that in the mix, and we have to look at the lockup. And I said, I'm willing to give that some time. But at the time I said, I would like by the end of the year to figure out what's going on with court consolidation and have a plan. So at the end of the year, I said, we don't have a plan. We're getting legislation through the legislature so that we can do this. We had come up with a good plan with the jail and courts going into South Lansing at Jolly and Collins, and it kind of fell apart at the end of the year. And what I told folks is, okay, this fell apart. Now we need to start looking at what does it look like for a new City Hall, including the courtrooms. I gave it a year to say we may not have to have the courts, and that would be great for government. It would be great for finances. But now we've hit the end of the year, and we don't have a physical consolidation plan, so we're going to start looking at a new option for City Hall that includes those pieces. So we're looking at a variety of options. I'm hopeful in the next few months to have kind of a plan that we can put before the people, but we're not there yet. We're looking at a whole variety of options. We've got, 4 proposals that came in at the end of 2017. We've got a variety of other, options that we can look at on where City Hall would go. I have talked to Mr. Beitler, and I'd say he continues to be interested, but is chomping at the bit to get in. And so we're working on it. We're looking at, what would design look like for a new City Hall, and how does that affect cost? What city departments and agencies would be in new City Hall? I'm looking at a whole variety of options. Can we look at, a customer service center in a new City Hall, where that's the place people go, in essence, to deal with things with the city, and then the things that are not part of a customer service center are decentralized. Does our IT department need to be in City Hall? They're not right now. They're in a parking garage. Do they need to move into City Hall? I don't know. We have a lot of property.
I think this is a change.
No.
Well, because we discussed decentralizing City Hall, and you were fairly adamant that no, it all needs to be in the same place, and some of it was understandable convenience for city employees.
I don't know that we had that conversation.
Yes.
So. All right. I'm going to believe you. So if that's the case, I will look at all options.
Yes, I brought it because I specifically said it was developer Harry Hepler who said to me, we've got all this office space in downtown Lansing. Why does everything have to be in the same building?
Well, and I'm not, we did have that conversation, but I'm not interested in renting from a variety of different people for office space. That's a bigger cost. For us, a decentralization could be what city property do we have? We own the Foster Center on the east side. Parks is there now. We're looking at putting our neighborhood department there. We have space. We have 3 parking garages, all which are open on the first floor. Our economic development and planning is in the North Capitol ramp, as is our IT is in one of the ramps. What can we do to look at utilizing space that we already have? And we have significant space. We have our South Washington office complex, which is enormous. What space can we utilize there? So I'm willing to look at a decentralized concept as long as we're using our space, which is available, so I don't have to pay rent to places all around the city. That is a savings for the taxpayers. And if we can bring down, an 80,000 square foot proposal for City Hall to a 30,000 square foot or 40,000 square foot proposal for City Hall, and that saves us money, we're going to look at all of that. Again, we have to look at the design. The original plan for a new City Hall was putting everything in City Hall and having a fairly large cost to build it or to make it happen. And so we're looking at all those details. We're hoping to have some planning and design options. If it's just as cost effective to have everybody in City Hall, then we'll put them there. If it's saving in cost to decentralize and put departments in space that we already own, we'll look at that. What I do want in City Hall is to make sure that when people have business they have to do with the city, they have one place they can go. Ideally, it would be nice if they can pay their income tax, they could pay their, for any permits that they need, they can come see me, they can come see city council, they can come see the city clerk, they can vote. These are all consumer heavy things that people do with the city. I would like that in one space.
Would that include the courts in your mind?
It would have to, yeah. It would. If there were another place for courts that we had in the city that would be functional, I would look at that. But very likely that would have to include courts right now and a lockup. So again, that pushes the cost up, but we have to have our courts, we have to have justice. So right now, yeah, that would be part of the plan. We could look at other space that we own for courts, but I'm not sure what we have. And even if we use something we'd have to spend a lot of money to retool it. So we'll have to look at all those options. For me, the cost is the biggest factor.
I just want to make sure I understand when you bring up the 4 plans that were submitted for the reuse of the current City Hall. The Beitler plan remains your desire.
Yeah, I meant the 4 plans for a new City Hall.
Oh, for a new city.
Yeah, so Bogie, Ron Bogie proposed, and
Right.
they proposed over on Grand. Richard Karp proposed in the Kalamazoo Grand area. Urban Systems proposed Lake Trust, and I am missing one.
Yes, you are.
My apologies. My apologies to whoever I'm missing. So no, the Beitler proposal remains, to me the preference. It was the preference of the committee by far.
Yeah.
I talked to several of the members, so that remains my preference. It's just a matter of getting the new City Hall. Again, we're going to look at all the design options and the costs and see if we can come up with something soon.
And meanwhile, the clock ticks on the economy.
Yeah.
Are you concerned that time's going to run out for Mr. Beitler?
We'll continue to have that conversation.
Yeah.
I've had several people come to me who have, thoughts on what they could do with City Hall. So, if time runs out with Mr. Beitler, that's not my preference. But if it happens, it happens. He is a builder who has dollars he needs to invest in something, and he can only wait so long. The economy is only going to be strong for so long. I'd like to get this done, but I have to be responsible with the taxpayer dollars. So we're going to see what options we can lay on the table and what we can make affordable and what we can do.
A decentralized City Hall, I would think, really opens up options for locations.
It does.
You have put some out there. I believe the Lansing School District has a building downtown. You mentioned the Sam Ide property is a possibility to build something new. What else can you share with us?
We're looking at everything. We've looked at CBRE Martin at the time, now Van Martin. They did a kind of a study a year or so ago on before I came into office on all available properties we did. We looked. We have got information from the school district on the Old West Junior High School. We've got a lot of vacant lots within the city that it would be nice to reuse some of that space. We've got the proposals we've received. We have city property. There is city property that we could use. We're looking at really any option and what the cost is. I know the City Pulse keeps reporting that I'm looking strongly at the 7 block. We haven't even had a conversation with the Ides. We know it's there, but it's one of all of the options. We really don't have a preference at this time. We've talked to them about the State Journal building, and that's what Paul Beitler proposed. But we've also talked to all the others. Again, we talked to Ron Bogie about the old Barry Amos location. We're talking to everybody to see what the costs are, to see if they're tied to new City Hall, and if they're not, what's the standalone cost? What is it? Where should it go? What does it do for that part of the city? Does it help to revitalize Cherry Hill? Does it help to revitalize the western part of the downtown? Where what are all those factors? And that's all factors to be considered. But for me, cost is the first consideration, especially when we have a lot of needs within the city. Everywhere I go, somebody asks for something. I was at a neighborhood meeting last night or 2 nights ago, and people were asking for more code enforcement, more police officers. We need more FOIA officers, which you have brought up. We have a lot of needs, so we have to be very careful with the finances.
All right. Another project that has come to the fore in the media is a Performing Arts Center.
Yep.
Something that has been on the table since Mayor Hollister tried to get something done. Tell us what you can about where things stand on that.
I'm very interested in the Performing Arts Center. I mean, you know that. I've been public about that. We were in Grand Rapids a few weeks ago, and you walk around, there's 2 or 3 of them. It's something that we need here in Lansing. We've had probably 3 or so different folks approach us about different options. I can't comment on them because we've been asked to hold that until there's some kind of a decision. But we'd like to have one. We expect that, and you wrote a real good article in the City Pulse. We expect that our media center will be involved. We have public access dollars that can be used for infrastructure, so they can go into a place and pay rent, or we can bond or things like that. So we have some dollars that we can put on the table, which are not taxpayer dollars. They are public access dollars that we receive for their right-of-way fees and things. So we have some money we can put in. I'll talk to anybody who's got an interest or who's got some space that they think that can be redeveloped. But it's really important that we have a performing arts center in Lansing. I mean, I think that the proposals we've received have, for the most part, been to do something in the downtown stadium district kind of core area. I would entertain it anywhere else. I mean, I would entertain it in Old Town. I'd entertain it on the south side. But the proposals that we have from folks who have finances and resources to work with the city have been in the downtown area, which is okay because that's where we seem to have a lot of people that come into town and that visit, and that we're building those that live here. So we're working on it. I mean, we're working on it. We've got financing ideas. We'd like to see something. Dominic Cochran, who does our media center, has been working with a variety of folks who are interested in arts on how it will be programmed. You can build it. Who's going to run it? So someone's got to program it. We expect it would be about 1,500 seats, although we'd love for that to be fluid. So, the idea is you could take the seats and in essence drop them into the floor and open up an open area and have concerts. So you could have the symphony and have, seated performances, or you can drop the seats into the floor or under the stage and kind of roll them under the stage, and now you can have concerts and things. So as concerts go from DTE in Detroit over to Chicago, they can stop here on the way. Mm-hmm. We're looking at all of that in terms of structure, but again, it's got to be financeable, and there's just a lot of moving parts to that. But we're having some conversations with a few different people, and as soon as we have a realistic proposal to get out to the public, and we'll be sure to talk to you about it. I know you have had a big interest in this for many years. And I appreciate it. You, Berl Schwartz, have been a good historical resource for me.
No.
I know you've
City Pulse.
Absolutely, City Pulse. We looked at City Pulse articles on the old Boar's Head property and on some of the different efforts that were done. So trying to get up to speed and not repeat the failures of the past and try and be creative. And there are a lot of people out there who believe that that Lansing needs a performing arts center, an indoor performing arts center, not just a band shell, but an indoor 365-day-a-year performing arts center. So we're working on it.
And I should disclose that I am chairing the facilities committee of the Arts Commission you appointed that is dealing largely with what to do about a performing arts center. Could you talk a little bit more about how this financing through the public media center would work? How important is that financing?
Well, we think it's pretty important, and many of even the past proposals have been based on the media center. It's a public media center. We get what are called PEG fees, so it's public access fees that we get because when you have companies who are doing public access and things, they use rights of way, and we get certain fees through the Michigan Telecommunications Act. So what we could do are twofold. We could work with somebody who is going to be spending their own money, but then need to recapture some of that money. We can move the media center out of our Southwest or our South Washington office complex. We can move the media center into one of those places and use these public access fees that we get to pay rent. That way we wouldn't have to build it. We would just be somebody who is paying into that center. We could, in essence, bond. We could say we're going to go to the bond market for a $4 or $5 million bond, get that cash right now and put that into construction of a building. And then as we get public access fees year after year, those fees will pay off the bond payment. So a $5 million bond will be a few $100,000 a year to pay that off over 25 or 30 years. Well, we will in essence have money coming in through fees, and that money will go to pay off the bond. Again, it's a clever financing tool that we can use. Now, if we do that, now we don't have that money for operational purposes. So again, you'd need a nonprofit of some sort or others that will work on the Performing Arts Center and that can also work with our media center for operational purposes. So we have different financing tools. Now that's not, $3 to $5 million is not going to build a performing arts center. So we need others who are willing to invest.
Any thoughts on what would build a performing arts center?
How much? I don't know because it depends on what's with it. We will need space for the Performing Arts Center, the seating, the structure. We'll need space for the media center if we're moving our media center in. And then it depends on what comes with it. Is there a parking deck component? Is there not? Is there a rehab component? Or is there, in essence, a standing building which needs a lot of money to fix it up? Is it an open area where we build upwards and then you need money to build vertical? I don't know. It depends on, we've got, again, a few proposals. The one that has been more public in the Pulse this week and in previous reporting is the Lake Trust idea, or the one that Jeff DeHaan is working on. And that, that was significant. It was a big cost. I want to say it was $40 million. But that was along the lines of a housing component and then putting the media center in, putting a performing arts center in. Again, City Hall was on that list of proposals. So I think they're working on the pieces, but if they have housing and they have other, potentially retail or whatever in that area, that can help towards the financing. So it depends on what we can make work. I mean, is it my preference to not have to utilize incentives? Yes, I would love to have something happen without utilizing incentives and just to have the media center go in and we can do some rent or something and it's privately financed and then that private developer reaps the benefit. They make the money off of whatever is associated with that area. But again, we're looking at all options and we'd like to see that happen.
Would the city operate the Performing Arts Center?
Preferably not. Preferably not. Preferably it would be some kind of a nonprofit, or there would be a management company that would come in and operate. That's how it's done in other areas. I think Grand Rapids, they're 2 or 3. Those are all privately run and they make money off of it. So preferably not. But
I'm sure there are people who are saying, we have many more important needs in a performing arts center.
Sure.
What do you say to them?
It's part of our quality of life. It's part of attracting people. It's part of having an effective downtown. We have a great downtown, and our stadium district is rolling. We're excited about soccer coming in. The two biggest things that we're lacking right now are a variety of hotels to utilize for people who want to stay downtown, and I think a performing arts center somewhere that we can get concerts. When you have concerts and things that go from Detroit to Mount Pleasant, or to Firekeepers, or and then make their way over to Chicago, we're missing out. We're missing out on economic development, on dollars. When people come in to watch a show, they go to the restaurant first. This is the same argument we made for the Lansing Ignite when we were working on the soccer team. We generate a lot of revenues off of both residents and visitors that come and spend time and go to restaurants and go to stores and things, and that money that we generate goes towards more police officers and more code enforcement and all of the needs that we have. So it would be a tremendous revenue generator, especially if someone does it privately, and now we can capture income tax, we can capture all kinds of economic growth and revenues and property values going up, more people living in the downtown because they want to live near it. It's all part of the quality of life that leads to economic development, which leads to financing a lot of our services throughout the city. So it all ties together. And again, if we don't have to put city dollars into it, which is not part of the plan right now, even better. Now we're not taking money away from one thing to put towards another. So we'll see how it goes, and we're going to continue to work on it.
As I was driving to work for the first time in 2019 to get to City Halls, you take a little street called Horton Street, which runs north-south. And for the first time at the end of Horton Street, I realized there's a big building where you just used to see the sky, and it's part of, I think it's the new Patton Gill, and of course the Eastern High School will close this year and move to the expanded old Patton Gill building. That brings up now, it brings really to the fore the future of the building of Eastern High School, which I think everyone agrees is one of the more impressive buildings in the city of Lansing. It's owned now by Sparrow. Sparrow has not shared its plans. If it has, it has said we're looking at it. Do you feel as mayor you should at least be discussing with what are you going to do with this building, which by the way has a magnificent auditorium?
It does. We've had a few conversations with Sparrow. Sparrow's going through transition right now because they have new leadership coming in, and I have not met the new gentleman who is going to be taking over Sparrow. It's on my list, but he's still coming in. They're transitioning. We spoke several times with the old administration, with Mr. Swan and some of the folks, and they honestly didn't know, or at least they told me they didn't know. I believe we sent a letter, and I've actually had several conversations with them about keeping that building and repurposing that building. Whether they have to gut the inside, there were some issues on the inside of that building, but not tearing it down and creating a parking lot. The building is beautiful, plus we don't need any more parking lots or surface parking in Lansing. So we've had conversations with them, with the previous leadership, and I'll have the same conversations with the future leadership that I want to know what's going on. They previously had done a very good job of keeping me in the loop and chatting. I think I met with Mr. Swan once or twice early in the year, last year, before their transition started, and we had good conversations. Not everything that I loved, but they kept me in the loop, and we talked about a lot of things. We knew that for St. Lawrence, for that campus, we knew that parking deck, that nasty metal thing, was coming down, and we were happy to hear that. We knew they were getting out of one of the buildings, but we're going to be keeping the other building, and we'd be keeping the services in the other building. And I had conversations with them about leaving some of the resources in St. Lawrence, and they are, although they moved their emergency emergency room facility over to the Michigan Avenue campus. I talked to them about making sure that they kept in touch with the public. I think they really don't know yet. I really don't think it's a big secret they're keeping and they're not telling. I think they really don't know yet. I think that their facilities people are going to look at that and figure out, what can it be used for. And with the school district getting out, I assume next year, and moving over to New Eastern, old Pattongill, they'll have to increase that timeline, and we will be having conversations with them as we build the relationship with the new CEO.
All right, and the other hospital, McLaren, has broken ground near MSU, still in Lansing,
Correct.
I believe. Yeah.
Yep.
But that will then, in a few years, leave some big vacant buildings. And
well, it won't leave. There will not be big vacant buildings.
for some short time at least.
They're going to take them down. If they cannot find a
Right.
repurpose, they will take them down. It would be
Does that figure in any way into? Does City Hall have to be downtown? Does that figure in any way into your?
It doesn't have to
campaign?
be, but my preference is to have it on a commercial area.
Mm-hmm.
When you've got several hundred employees, and there's traffic considerations. Do you want to put it in a neighborhood and have that many more cars and things rolling through? There's considerations of putting it somewhere where people can walk outside and grab a sandwich and grab have the ability to have a commercial corridor. Almost every city has their city hall in a downtown or a commercial area, and that's because you have hundreds of people that you want to in essence help with the economic development of that area. I want all of the people who work in City Hall to go out and have a sandwich and grab a cup of coffee or whatever within a downtown area. So putting it in the middle of a neighborhood at the Green Lawn campus would clearly be a challenge.
But there is also on Pennsylvania Avenue that facility.
There's the facility on Pennsylvania Avenue. We haven't looked at that. I don't know what the cost would be to rehab that. I think that I have met with McLaren's CEO and their senior staff, and right now they're looking at who is there and what's out there that would be interested in purchasing those buildings, and to have those buildings go online and be tax-paying entities. I would like to see that. We'll look at City Hall, and if that became the most affordable model, again, we'd have to buy the building and then we'd have to rehab the building, or we have to buy the campus on Green Lawn and rehab the campus on Green Lawn. I don't know if that would be any more affordable, and then it's in a centrally located part of town, which is great, but it's not really in a commercial area, and that is more concerning. Again, plus there would be significant traffic rolling through a neighborhood. So we'll navigate that, but my insistence.
I'm not sure there'd be more traffic than there was to a hospital.
I don't know what the traffic was, to be honest. I don't know what the traffic is now. I have used the Green Lawn campus. Both my children were born there, and I don't know that there's a lot of steady traffic rolling through. There's some. I don't know if there's a lot of steady traffic rolling through. Again, we can look at that, but it goes back to cost, and it's on the list as an option, but we have to figure out what the cost would be to buy it and what the cost would be to rehab it. But the one thing that I am certain of is that there will not be vacant buildings left. It'll either be repurposed, which is my hope, and or it'll come down and there will be green space there, and then you can look at new housing. You can look at businesses, whatever. If we want to look at retail, we could or business community, we can look at that. Lansing can always use a new mixture of housing. We could put up nicer housing for folks, for young professionals and others, and we're looking at that down at Life O'Reilly. There's a lot of options with a wide, big open space. The Pennsylvania campus is on the south side of the Sycamore Park neighborhood. Again, that we could extend that neighborhood and see about putting housing there, or we can leave it as green space, which is always nice to have. Although I don't know that that we need a new park in that Pennsylvania campus, because there's already a park at the end of Sunnyside down over there. So we have options, as long as they're not big vacant buildings standing there where
Right.
you have,
And as you said, McLaren said they're not
have-
going to allow that
correct.
to happen. A couple of, quickly, anything new on either the Red Cedar development or the Gillespie Market hotel plan?
Well, the market, the Gillespie, the urban, or whatever we're going to call it, the downtown market and hotel and housing, that was approved by the MEDC. It was approved by us for a brownfield. There's massive contamination, and we know that. It was approved by the MEDC for their piece at the end of the year. So they've got all the approvals that they need in terms of economic development incentives and brownfield as of probably December, I don't remember what it was, December 20th or whatever it was. So they are now good to go. They've got a year and a half or so to do all the cleanup and then to go vertical. And we expect by the summer of 2020 or by September of 2020, it will be complete. So we're excited about that. Everything that needed to happen has happened. We have done we did our rezoning, we did our land or our road vacation, we did everything we needed to do quickly. We worked with them very closely. The finances will work, and I think it's going to be a great resource for not just our downtown, but for our city. Having the kind of that smaller Myers store that's as a market, that opens up as a market, having the hotel, which we desperately need, having new housing in that area, all of that. We're learning from Grand Rapids, and in Grand Rapids they didn't put all those pieces together. They didn't have hotel. They just had the store and housing, and they've said we wish we would have put some kind of a hotel presence in this area. So we're going to do that. So we're excited.
Red Cedar.
We're working on it. They have to have a brownfield plan. We have gone through several iterations. I was on the phone with them yesterday. We are hopeful in the next 3 weeks to a month to have a finalized brownfield plan and to look at at announcements. But there is a lot of details with Red Cedar. There were a lot of pieces to that. There's a market rate housing component. There's a senior living component. There's 2 hotels. There's a student housing component. There's this, the plinth, what we call this parking. So there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle. It's a big project.
Yeah.
The council approved the development agreement. We're working with them on the brownfield plan. There could be small changes in the development agreement. We need to finalize all of that to make sure the financing works. And then we'll go back to council with whatever we need and hopefully get that approved quickly. And I'd love to see them start work by the end of the summer. But it's a very complicated deal that we have to get right.
Yeah.
So we're in conversations.
All right. Finally, dispensaries. So we've got 2 applicants who've made it all the way through the process, got state licenses, can't open because they can't get product.
Yep.
And this is not just locally.
No, this is
a
statewide.
Problem. But I understand you have some thoughts on a comment I think Ken Fletcher in Delta Township made when it said when they rejected, at least for now, having dispensaries. I believe he said something to the...
It was Mary Clark.
Mary Clark, the clerk. Thank you. That we don't want dispensaries on every corner like in Lansing.
She and I spoke, and I don't think she meant to say what she said. I've known Mary for a very long time. Mary is a Lansing supporter. She is a Delta Township clerk. She's a Lansing supporter, and we had a really good conversation. And I don't think she meant what she said and what was printed. Now, what was printed is what she said, and she fully took credit or took responsibility for that. And I expressed to her again, she's a friend, and sometimes your friends say things you don't like, and you have a conversation with them. And I have been very upfront about we're not going to opt out of recreational marijuana. It passed with 70% in the city of Lansing. We will regulate it. I'm not looking for a Wild West, hundreds of different shops and things. We have a good structure that will be in place, hopefully. Hopefully pretty soon we will have, 25 operational or up to 25 operational dispensaries. I have made it pretty clear that we're going to work on a recreational marijuana ordinance, or take our existing medical and just expand it to medical and recreational. I'd like to see the infrastructure. If you've got people who are getting product and have it and are selling it, if they're selling it to those with the medical card, why not sell it to those with the recreational card also? In terms of the infrastructure, it's the same place. Why not allow anybody to come in who wants to? I'll make that proposal to City Council. We have to, again, fix the details. I'd like to change some of the things that we're seeing with the current medical marijuana ordinance. That we keep getting asked, how come you're not approving more? The process says you have to wait. When you deny somebody, you have to give them 30 days from the denial to appeal, and then once they appeal, it takes a while to get the appeal done. It has to go through the board. I'd like to see the 30 days reduced. Do we really need 30 days for an appeal? Why can't it be 7 days? I'd like to reduce that timeline, which is kind of pushing out our time to be able to get these approved. We have to look at, what do we do? We can have up to 20 and then another 5. What happens when the state rejects? Then we have to turn around and change it from an approval to a rejection and then approve another one. I think there are details that need to be worked out, and we're working on that for a proposal to council. And Delta Township is going to do what they feel is best for their residents. And when I was, called by Kyle, by your reporter, that was my comment. My comment was, we are doing what we feel is best for the city of Lansing and our residents. And I'm sure Delta Township will do the same. And I'm always disappointed if somebody wants to use Lansing as a negative example for their decisions. And I don't think that Mary really meant it that way. So I'm happy we had a very good conversation. And again, I think she is a Lansing supporter, especially as one of our neighbors. She supported me when I ran for office, and I appreciated that. And we're going to do what's best for the city of Lansing. We'll continue to work with Delta Township and East Lansing and all the other communities around. And if they choose to opt out, that's their choice. We're just not going to do that.
All right, and I'm out of questions, but anything I missed that you want to bring up?
We have so much going on. We're so busy. Yeah. We just have a lot going on. I'm going to do my State of the City on February 6th at Riverwalk Theater. We've put some of that out on social media. We did a media release. I heard it on the radio this morning. It's going to be a busy week because Governor Whitmer has her State of the State on the 5th, on a Tuesday, and then my State of the City is on the 6th. So I'm excited for both of those. I'm excited to talk. We'll be at Riverwalk Theater. We're going to talk about art. We're going to talk about public art here in Lansing. I do think it's a tremendous driver for the economy. I go to U.S. Conference of Mayors and all these other conferences, and everybody's talking about public art. And like I said, you've known that for years. You're on my Arts Commission. The fact that we have an Arts Commission is getting a lot of conversation, a lot of play, that we could put together these incredible experts all in one room. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about branding for the city. We're going to talk about how we push out the incredible things we're doing here in Lansing, the development that we're doing, the neighborhood work that we're doing, innovation, the 5,000 or 6,000 potholes that we've filled, and many of the major street reconstructions that we've done, the roads plan that we've done. It's been a busy year. Yeah. But we have a lot more coming in 2019. So we're going to talk about all of that. So I'm sure after the State of the City, you and I will have lots to talk about on the show here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks for your time today. And again, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Berl. Thanks.
And we will be back in February with Mayor Andy Schor for City Pulse. And on behalf of Message Makers, where we are recording this interview, thanks so much for watching.